I'm Christian Martirano with American Music and Sound, and I'm having a blast here with the Nord Stage 3. Because the Nord Stage 3 is so deep, I want to show you even more features. I'm going to move into the middle section now, where all the data entry and information is entered into the instrument and the main display, and talk about some of the improvements that have been made. First off, the OLED display is a great improvement. There's a lot of information going on in this instrument, especially when you're making multiple layers or splits. You can now see an overview of your zones. And speaking of zones, the Stage 3 allows 4 zones, whereas the predecessor, the Stage 2EX, only allowed 3 zones. This is really important because if you're controlling, for example, a laptop or an iOS device, you might want to put that on its own zone and still have it split or layered into the process that you're making for your overall sound. So now you can have a dedicated zone that you might just want to give to that and still have 3 zones for internal sounds. In the Stage 2EX, you had to give up one of those 3 zones to dedicate it to an external zone. So it's a really nice feature. This beautiful OLED display shows me the ability to see a lot of information. If I'm using a tone wheel organ, for example, or a pipe organ, I can see the actual registrations that I have, which drawbars are pulled out. I can see an actual graphic in the display of that. I can also see things, for example, like my splits and my layers. When I have up to 4 zones, it might be helpful for me now to see exactly where those zones are placed. So the display will give me that feedback. Also, Nord has introduced Song Mode, which you saw first in the Nord Electro series. Song Mode allows me to group my front panel buttons, the 5 patch select buttons, into what they call a song. This is helpful if you think of it this way. Maybe I'm making an alternate patch list for a set I'm playing. So I want the first 5 songs I'm playing listed there, the patches that I use. Or if I'm making a single song and I think of the intro, the verse, the bridge, the chorus, the outro. So it depends on how you want to group it. I look at it as an alternate list. So it's a way for me to group what I want. And you have 400 slots and 8 different banks of these songs that you can save. So very, very powerful stuff. I'll be using that as I demo the instrument today. In addition, you now have the ability to do a crossfade split. In the past, a crossfade was a hard line between 2 sounds. If you had played a run in your right hand with a piano and you happened to cross over that split point, you might be striking a few bass notes. I always hate when that happens. So now with this crossfade split, as you're going down the keyboard, the transition is very smooth. I'm going to show a quick demonstration of that. I'll start with a piano. In this case, I have an electric piano. And I'm going to make a split. I'm going to assign the left part to a bass and the right to the piano. Okay, so now I have a bass. The split point is indicated by an LED. I'm going to move the split point down. And to do that, I just hold the split button, and the display presents me a graphic allowing me to select where the split point will be. So I've now moved it down between E and F. And you can hear this dramatic change in timbre. So if I'm playing a quick jam here and I happen to play a run and I cross that point, you see what I'm talking about. Sounds really bad. So I'm going to now use their crossfade split, and I'll make it a large crossfade. There's 2 modes, small and large or off. So this is the large crossfade. I'll play through the transition. So you can hear how smooth that is. The LED turns red where the split occurs, indicating I'm using a crossfade. So if I do that same example and I play across the split area, you'll hear how it's no longer gives me that annoying change in timbre dramatically. This is great. I'm really, really pleased with this feature. As I spoke about list mode, if I decide to hold the Shift button and look at my list, I can now see all the patches that are in the instrument in a giant list. This is a great advantage over trying to imagine what the synthesizer patch is, what the piano, what the organ is doing when you call up a combination, or which combinations are even in the instrument at any one time. Further, I can edit these lists and the orders of things right on the instrument. I don't have to use an external librarian. This is great also. Let's look at the Nord Stage 3 Synth section now using the A1 synthesizer engine. This is a really powerful section. I'm going to spend some time in this demonstration just showing the synthesizer section. First, I'm going to play some synth patches so you can hear the overall tone of the synthesizer. Just a handful of programs just to get an idea of the overall sound. One great improvement you might have noticed is that Nord has made it now that you can switch from these massive setups smoothly with no effects interruption. I'll just give a quick demonstration of two really non-like programs, and you'll hear how smooth the effects transition. Those are some very diverse patches, and you notice there's no effects glitching. You don't hear sudden volume dramatically changed. Other than than the fact of the ones that I want to happen that way. I'm going to move again a little deeper into the synth section now and let you look at some of the configurations possible. There's a knob marked configuration. If I hold down the shift button and turn it, we can see in the display changes in the graphics of what's happening. In previous models of the stage, you could have a sample playback through the synth architecture, or you could have traditional waveforms like sawtooth, square, sine. In this instrument, you can combine sample playback now with waveforms, with synthesized waveforms. So you can get a much fatter, much more interesting sound that's part organic and part electronic. As you shift through these different modes, you'll notice that you can also change within the modes what's going on in the windows. So for example, right now I'm layering an orchestral string with a sine wave, and I can detune the sine wave, or I can change the sine wave to something else. Right now I have a triangle wave, I have a sawtooth wave. So I can mix, and then I have a control that allows me to mix between them. I can also morph between them using the morphing technology. You also have things like ring modulator that you can apply. You have some very, very cool things going on. You have phoneme synthesis using vowels like A, E, I, O, and U, and you can morph between those vowel sounds. You can combine these different kinds of techniques together with your piano engine, your organ engine, and make a massive setup in a single panel. And then, of course, you can combine two panels. So very, very powerful instrument. I'm going to touch a little bit on the effects section, let you hear a little bit of that, and then we'll close by showing you some of the cool stuff in the EQ section that's been done. I'm going to start by picking a simple mellotron string sound. And now I'm going to put it through this delay with this analog tape delay effect. I'm going to assign a high-pass filter to it. And you'll hear as the repeats continue that the high end will die, well, the bottom end, in this case, because I'm using a high pass, will die away. If I select low pass, of course, then the high frequencies will die away. I grew up with a mellotron. I owned one, so I know what it's like. And the high frequency dying away was a characteristic that you found in a lot of tape loops. And as they got older, the tapes themselves, then the high end would die away. So I'm just going to simulate a program now using a little bit of reverb and one of these delays that would have been something that I might have used back in the 80s. Helps bring a real element of authenticity. One of the other really nice features in the instrument, in this delay section, you have a clock that you can set to a master clock, or it can be free running to its own tempo. Likewise, you can set the arpeggiator and the synthesizer to a master clock. And you can sync all these together so you can have some really interesting things going on that will, of course, slave to MIDI clock coming in over MIDI or MIDI over USB. Very, very powerful stuff. The EQ section uses now this beautiful 3-post EQ with a sweepable mid parametric section. In addition, they've added a 24 dB high pass and low pass resonant filter. So here's a setup I made using a resonant filter being swept using the morphing technology from a CC pedal. This is a great feature, and to me, again, allows me to use my other effects for different purposes when I'm making these big configurations. Thank you again for watching. I'm Chris Martirano with American Music and Sound. If you need more information on the Nord Stage 3, make sure you go to fullcompass.com or contact your sales professional.